Welcome to the Work, Wealth, and Travel podcast. I'm your host, Nicole, and this podcast is your guide to start creating a lifestyle by design. From entrepreneurship, money and finance, taxes and residencies, and everything in between, this show highlights the nuances of a true global citizen lifestyle. Let's dive in. Welcome back to the show. In today's episode, I sit down with Grant Warrington. So Grant, along with his wife, started investing in real estate in 2015 and became millionaires only 4 years later. They quit their jobs and became very intentional about posting content online, which has gotten noticed over the years. Grant himself has built his audience of over 50,000 followers across all platforms and has gotten on very big podcasts such as Tribe of Millionaires, Content Capitalist, and even had Grant Cardone on one of his lives in recent months. In this episode, we dive into what his real estate investing philosophy looks like, where he started, and why he abandoned what he started with when he started real estate investing and went a different route that was so much more profitable, eventually getting him noticed by Grant Cardone. Let's dive into this episode. Grant, welcome to the Work, Wealth, and Travel podcast. I'm so looking forward to our conversation today. Before diving in, please share a little bit more about your story, your journey, and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Nicole. This is I've been looking forward to this all week, so I'm excited to talk to you. I've been following a little bit of what you do too, and it's pretty amazing. So I'm excited to have this conversation. For me, if you want to start back, all the way to when I was 19 years old, like I was destined to be a construction worker. It's just what I was. I mean, I got a picture of me when I was like 5 years old in my dad's crane. My dad was a crane operator. My grandfather, his dad was a crane operator. I became a crane operator. It was my destiny. And 24 years I did that. But the thing was, I always hated having a boss. Like, I mean, when I'm telling you about it right now, I feel this burning in my chest. I haven't had a boss for like 5 years, but I still hate it to this day. Right. And that's what drove me. It wasn't because I was incredibly gifted or I had these unique abilities. I didn't go to college. I didn't have a lot going for me. Back then, I had a massive drinking problem I had to overcome. I had a lot of things I had to overcome, but I had that why that really pushed me forward. And I just knew I was meant for bigger and better things. And slowly over time, that started to come out. I started making small little incremental changes, got into real estate in early 2000s. They were giving away mortgages back then. And I got 3 of them, bought 3 rental properties. I thought I was doing great. I bought these books on tape by Carlton Sheets, if anybody's ever heard of those. And I didn't read one of them or didn't listen to one of them. I just bought a house and everybody ended up owing me money. I was a horrible landlord. I had to declare bankruptcy in 2007, gave everything back and to the bank. Luckily, I was the only one involved in that. And it sucked. And then, again, I was just so unprepared for that. And then in 2011, I finally, with God's help, I quit drinking. I was able to start slowly changing my life from that point. And again, met my wife in 2014, and she told me, "Hey, I've always been interested in real estate. It's been my dream." And I was like, "Oh, wow. I tried that before, and I know I'm going to do it again, but like, why don't we do it together?" And in 2014, we bought a rental property together. And I mean, now comes the next chapter and everything else in our story. But basically, that was the start. I was, like I said, a construction worker, but no skills translated into, I ran a crane. I didn't know carpentry. I didn't know plumbing. I didn't know all these things. I knew I wanted to be free. And that's all I knew. And that's what I looked at. That boss was taking away my freedom. He was deciding for me how much money I was going to make, if I was going to work the weekend, if I was going to be able to go to weddings, funerals. I've been told that I couldn't do those things in the past. And I'm like, I cannot live this way. And I needed a way out, and real estate was my way out. So that's the beginning of the journey for me.
Okay, I love that. What an interesting story. So thank you for sharing that beginning. So I'm curious, building the actual real estate empire with your wife alongside you, what did that actually look like?
Well, we started out with very little money. I had 20,000, she had 20,000. We put our money together. This was before we were married, and we bought our first rental property. We ran out of money, had no idea what to do next. And then she ended up moving in with me. We got engaged. Her condo became the next property. So now we had two. And we had to figure it out along the way. And I know this isn't a real estate podcast, but we met mentors and networked. And that's how we found people a few steps ahead of us. Like I would say, if someone wanted to travel the world, right, with that lifestyle by design, you're ahead of them, right? You would be someone that they could reach out to and say, because they're going to have a million questions. And that's what we had. And it's the same thing. You got to network. You got to follow successful people, and successful people are willing to help people that put in the work. And that's what I found a guy, and he said, you need to do these things. And he gave me 5 things to do. I don't remember what they are today, but I came back to him and I said, all right, I did those 5. What's next? And he's like, I've never had anybody come back to me. He's like, no one ever does what I say. And it's the truth. They don't. People just want that. They want that free advice, but they're not willing to take action on it. And so basically, fast forward, my wife and I, we got up to 11 rental properties. And we said, okay, we're not making any money with these single family homes. We need to level up to small apartment buildings. And, 11 units in 2 years, we got up to with no money. So I sold my boat, my truck, my pool table. The dream was big enough, right? I wasn't going to let, I don't have money stand in the way. So I sold stuff. We cut all our expenses. We were living on $40,000 a year at one point. That's healthcare, cars, food, everything. It's not a lot. And it was tough. And it was challenging. It tested us, our relationship, everything. It was really tough. I had to grow tremendously through that point. My wife was geared for it, but I had a lot of still personal growth to go through. But in 2017, made a decision. We're buying apartments. 2019, January 27th, 2019, we closed on our first apartment building. And that's when things, again, for let's say the third chapter, started to change. We started to make more money. We were able to refinance that property. We pulled $300,000 out of it, that first apartment building, after we rehabbed it, and tax-free because it's a loan. So then we were able to put that money to work, buy another apartment building, and that's how we were able to grow. And that's when we lived in Detroit, Michigan. That's where I've been. I've been in the same house since I was 22 years old. I'm 48 now. When I was 47, so 10 months ago, we sold that house and we moved to St. Petersburg, Florida. And that's where we live right now. Friday, so, 5 days ago, I believe, we bought this house I'm sitting in now. So this is the first house we've bought in Florida. So we are so excited about that. So now we're Florida residents. We've changed our location, but we had to go through so much through that process, and just the mindset shift through all of this that, you know what, we don't have to live in Michigan. We don't have to live in the gray skies. We don't have to live in the cold, the gloomy winters. And we said, why don't we move? And that's what we did. And we moved, we made it happen. And, the point being, you don't have to be miserable. And I think you say that too, right? I think that's the point, is you don't have to be miserable in your life. You can make changes. Because I always tell people, what if your boss told you you need to move to Oklahoma or wherever it might be? You would move, right? I'm sure you would. And that's what happens to a lot of people. Well, if their boss tells them they have to do it, they do it. But for them to do it themselves, now that's a different story. You still have that option. So when people say, oh, well, I could never move, it's not true. You could. It's just, what are you willing to put up with?
Perfectly well said. And I love that you created your own lifestyle design within the US and figuring out, the US is huge. Which state? You have so many options to choose from. So now I'm curious, what were some of the issues? You mentioned issues with small homes. I can envision, coming from a background and having other people on the podcast in a similar real estate niche, what some of those were. But I'm curious, in your firsthand opinion, what some of those challenges were and how those are now mitigated with what you are doing with these small apartments.
Yeah, for sure. So we're like a lot of people starting out in real estate in the beginning, right? I thought we're going to buy a few single family rentals, some homes, rent them out. We're going to be rich. We're going to quit our job. This is going to be amazing. We're never going to have to work again. It's going to be passive. And it's none of those things. Real estate's a job. It's like anything else, right? You need to work at it. We self-manage, so it's more of a job for us. We've always done that. The great thing is my wife manages our 41 units now. She manages all of it, which gives me time to do other things like this podcast, my content, and then I have a course too that I teach people how to buy small apartments. But when you buy a small apartment or a single family home, we got up to 11 units in 2 years. We weren't making much money. We were putting money back into the properties. And we realized that on one home, let's say, if you have a major plumbing or repair, or let's say you need to put a roof on a home, it could be $8,000 for a roof, $10,000, depends where you live, but that wipes out your profit for up to 2 years. And now all of a sudden, you're not making any money on that home for 2 years. That sucks. The other thing is, if somebody moves out, it could be vacant for a year or two. Now you're even in a worse situation because you have to pay the mortgage on it. Our first apartment building we bought was a 20 unit. We bought it, 5 units were vacant and it was still making money. And that's when we realized this is a much better situation. We've had to do repairs and improvements on these properties, but we can make that back up very quickly because we have more tenants under one roof, right? And the other beautiful thing is apartments are valued on a cap rate or your net operating income, your cap rate times the net operating income. And if I can raise rents and lower expenses, basically I can jack up the value of that apartment building overnight, where a single family home, it's only going to be worth what your neighbor sold his house for in the last 6 months. That's it. It doesn't matter how much you raise rents, how much you lower your expenses. It's only valued on the other comps in the neighborhood. And apartment buildings are, you can just force that appreciation so much that it's really incredible. Like that first 20 unit, I found it off market, and we bought it for $625,000 in 2019. And 16 months later, we increased the value to $1,030,000. That was in the middle of COVID. It should have been 1.1, but they gave us a low appraisal, which was fine. We were able to take a loan for $800,000, and that gave us a $300,000 check at that refinance, tax-free, and that's how we were able to move forward. So it's like supercharging your investing when you get up to small apartment buildings. And I say 5 to 20 units. That's what I tell people. So people that own a few single family rentals, my goal is to teach them, because pretty soon you realize, there's not a lot of money here, is to level up to that small apartments, because 5 units and above is a commercial loan. And they base that more on what the performance of the property, as opposed to your net worth and your, what you do individually.
Interesting. Okay. So my next question has to be, if somebody is looking to get started, and, you started with low capital and you started in the wrong space, but you've now moved into the proper space that works for you. What would your advice be for someone looking to get started with lower capital?
Got it. And you know what? I don't want to say I started in the wrong space, because my advice, unlike a lot of others, is just do what you can. Do whatever you can. Even though I'm telling you, you're going to run into these roadblocks, The important thing is to start where you can. If you can only buy a single family rental, do that. If you can rent out rooms in your home, if you're in that situation, do that. Whatever you can do to start, do it. But keep in mind the roadblocks, the limitations, and you always want to be leveling up, right? So as long as you realize that and you weren't naive like I was and thought, oh, we'll buy a few rental houses and we'll be rich. That's not the case. And it is going to take some work. But here's the thing. My wife and I, we go on a walk every morning. Just depends whenever we wake up. We don't wake up to an alarm clock. We go to the gym around 2 every day. And we do what we want. I'm driving to meet a friend who's in town for lunch after this podcast. When you sit and think about it, it's just incredible when you can build your life in this way. And it's so rewarding that it's really incredible. It takes a little bit of work. It's like anything else, but where do you want to put your work in, right? Like I was working my butt off and I'm sitting there looking at my boss, who was the owner. I'm like, man, I am making him very happy and wealthy. He was on vacation all the time. I remember my one particular boss who happened to be my mentor, awesome guy. He owned real estate too. I became the director of operations for his property management company. And it was an amazing experience. I've managed over 800 units. I've done over 100 rehabs. And, but I remember one instance, there was a fire at an apartment building and
the only way this show grows is if you share the episodes you love and your key takeaways. If you've been loving this show, hit subscribe and leave a 5-star review with your favorite takeaways. We appreciate you, and let's get back into the episode.
Luckily, no one got hurt, right? But he was in the Bahamas. And I was like, wow. And I handled everything, right? And we got it all back, put together. Everything was fine. And but it's just that thinking like, wow, here I was going through all this. And I'm like, I want to be the guy in the Bahamas, you know? And it's just you just got to shift that thinking, and you got to realize that can be me. Where do I want to work hard, right? Do I want to work hard for someone else, or do I want to work as hard as I can for myself? And really, is it hard? I tell people, digging a ditch, that's hard. Going to prison for 20 years, that's hard, right? This is inconvenient. So do you want to be inconvenienced to live a life that other people can't? And that's really the question.
Yeah, I totally agree. Now, do you mind if I ask you a personal question, Grant?
Oh, go ahead.
I'm curious because, this is kind of the stage of life where I am going into, and I'm curious what it has looked like for you. Do you have kids?
No, we don't. My wife and I got married at 38, tried, and we just weren't able to have kids.
And so how do you think that has affected your business, either positively, negatively? I'm curious from the entrepreneurial aspect.
You know what? It's hard for me to say because I don't have anything to compare it to. Neither one of us have kids, but I would say it's probably been easier. Decisions have been easier because it's my wife and I, right? We don't have to worry about kids. But again, could that be an excuse? It could be. I'm sure there's people that have 3 kids, 4 kids, and have done a lot more than I've done. But not having them has made it easier for us because we'll just look at each other and be like, hey, let's dig in. Let's do it. My wife's amazing. Like she is Wonder Woman. And she's like, let's do it. Let's get it done. Like nobody outworks her, literally. And it's just been an incredible experience. So not having to worry about that has been easy. I mean, being able to move here has been easy. No kids in school. But again, like I say, if a boss or someone was to tell you, hey, you need to move and you need to do this, you're going to move. You're going to take your kid. You're going to put them in another school. You're going to do all these different things on your own. So why not do it for yourself?
Yeah, I totally agree. And I appreciate you answering that. I've been having conversations with quite a few others on the podcast and elsewhere. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting to just hear the perspective of those who have kids and the life they have now versus those who don't. And the lifestyle, from what I've seen and what I've heard, is drastically different.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, my kids are wonderful, and I've always heard my friends say that. It's I love having kids, and but they also say you are so lucky. You can do whatever you want, and it's true. And I do enjoy that. I mean, I really enjoy that we can do whatever we want and really focus on each other.
Yeah. Okay. I want to ask you about now. I know, of course, you're not a tax professional, but there are a lot of tax advantages in real estate to be had in the US. Are you able to share what a few of those that you have taken advantage of are, just on a very high level?
Yeah, for sure. So you can, and again, talk to your CPA. I'm not a CPA. So one thing you can do is you can take owner draws from your property, and that's something we do. Owner draws are tax free. Again, talk to your CPA. We pay zero in income tax. Probably the last, I don't know how many years since we probably bought the apartment, our first apartment. We own three now. And it's just been incredible. And I want people to realize these tax advantages, they aren't for rich people. And a lot of people get that. Oh, rich people take advantage of the system. That's not true. Those tax advantages were there for me when I was a construction worker. I just didn't do anything to take advantage of them. So I just want to make that clear. Anyone complaining about tax advantages, take advantage of them. Go out there, put some work in, start a business, start a company, and take advantage of them. They're there for you. And so we pay zero in income tax. But again, we probably pay $50,000 a year in property tax. So you have to take that into consideration too. So we do pay tax. We pay a lot of it, and that's something you can never get away from. But the nice thing is the tenants that comes out of the money that that the property produces. The other thing is with apartment buildings, you can do what's called a cost segregation. Now, I'm not an expert in this, and we haven't done one because we weren't high income earners, so we didn't need to offset our income. But if you make a lot of money, there's a way to offset it. And basically you can write off a property for 27 and a half years. And when you do a cost segregation, it shrinks that time, all of those write-offs from 27 and a half years down to 1 year or 5 years, or even a 15-year bucket, right? And you can take those depreciation in like year one instead of over the 27 and a half years. There's a lot of other stuff that goes through it, or there's a lot of stuff that goes into it, being a real estate professional, all kinds of different things. I won't bore everybody with it, but that's another advantage of apartment buildings. It's you can't do that with your single family rental. If you own enough of them, you could. But again, let's say you have 50 single family rentals. That's 50 roofs spread out all around town. And, we own 41 units with 4 purchases. And, for us, that's just the way to do it. There's just such an advantage with apartments.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. So I want to shift a little bit over to the content creation aspect of your business, which is, of course, a large aspect of the business. So how did you get started in content creation? You have also met with one of the biggest content creator real estate moguls, Grant Cardone. So share a little bit about that story as well.
Yeah. And first of all, building a brand, that's the only reason that Grant Cardone reached out to me. But let me start in the beginning. I was a realtor as well when I lived in Michigan, and a guy told me, hey, for my brokerage, he's like, hey, listen, back then in like 2018, only 8% of realtors are posting videos online. You should do that. And I thought, oh, okay, well, I'll do it. I just follow what people tell me. That's all I do. I'm not a genius. I just met a guy that said, you need to take these steps with real estate and you're going to be more successful. I'm like, all right. And this guy's telling me this. I'm like, I could do that. I don't love shooting videos. I don't love creating content. Nobody really does. After it's done, I love it. I love seeing people interact with it. And I love the fact of it. But what I decided 2 years ago was, I thought, you know what? I'm going to get more intentional with it. And I'm going to post every single day. And that's what I did. I just started creating it. I would create it just on my phone. That's what I tell people. Just use your phone. You don't need, like, I have a light setup. I have a nice camera. I have a, $300 microphone. You don't need all that in the beginning. Start shooting with your camera. Shoot it every single day. Shoot content. You can batch it. Shoot 10 videos in one day and then just release them every day, right? And I use Trello. It's an app. And whenever I have an idea, I'll just put it in there, videos to shoot, and I'll just put my idea in there. And then I come back to them and I scroll through and I'll expand on those when I'm ready to develop some content. So it doesn't have to be hard. And then as you go, always improve your image over time, right? So that means not just yourself, but your microphone, your lighting, your camera, just improve over time. You don't have to do everything day one. But again, 2 years, now we post 2 reels a day and we post it everywhere. And Grant Cardone saw it. And New Year's Eve, I got a DM on Instagram from him. And he said, "Hey man, I love what you're doing. And I'd love to be on your podcast." And he said, "Email me here." It was his assistant. And I was like, "Oh, wow." I said, "Great." So we lined it up. The only problem was I don't have a podcast. So I reached out to my buddy who's got a podcast. We showed up live, went to Grant Cardone's place in Miami, 10X Studios. We recorded with him. And it was amazing. I told him, "Hey, listen, I don't have a podcast. That's why my buddy's here." And he's like, "Good for you, man." And there's a lot of controversy with Grant Cardone. Amazing guy, treated us with the most respect, and it was an incredible experience. And I gotta say, I went live last week too, and on Instagram. I'm on Instagram live, and all of a sudden I saw Grant Cardone was watching my video, and he started texting me. Grant ended up jumping on my live. There's 2 minutes of it. You can go to my Instagram at Grant Warrington, and you can see Grant Cardone, or my YouTube at Grant Warrington. And there's 2 minutes, and Grant was talking to me on live and said some incredible things. I mean, I'm truly grateful for the guy because he's a billionaire, right? For a guy at that level to take the time to interact with me. I have 41 units. Like, how would we even know each other? And the only way we know each other is through that brand. It's through the brand that I've built, and it's taken years of building. But again, it's like anything else. If you don't put the time in to do this, you're not going to be able to live a lifestyle that other people can't, because you know what I mean? It's just, without the brand, no matter what you do, just like you building your brand, people can follow it and see you and say, "Wow, I like what she's doing. I like who she is. I love her message." Without your brand and your social media, people aren't going to get that, and you aren't going to help change people's lives. So it's so important to build that brand. And I just encourage everybody to do it.
Yeah, I could not agree more. I think, if you are any type of entrepreneur, almost any type of entrepreneur these days, but if you should have a personal brand, but if you really want to be more visible, especially on a global or a national scale, I mean, there's only a few ways to accomplish that. And you can do that through ads. That still requires content, or you can do that through organic content.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, this has been a great conversation. So on the notes of entrepreneurship, building personal brand, is there anything else that you want to touch on that we have not yet?
No, that's pretty much, I mean, just the content creation. One more thing I'll tell people about that is, even if you don't want to, and since I'm in the real estate space, I'll just relate it to that. Let's say you buy a property and you're flipping it or you're doing something with it. Even if you're not on social media, just record everything. You can take pictures of everything, save that content, because one day you can use it. I have content from 5 years ago I haven't used yet. Just pictures I've taken, videos I've taken. And what I do is, you don't need to talk in your videos. I have videos from 5 years ago, and I'll take the video and I'll just voice over it with this microphone, and I'll talk about what I'm doing in the video. So it doesn't matter if you're ready right now. You might be ready in a few years, but create that content, save it, and use it in the future. And just another thing, if people are interested in apartments, they can go to apartmentbuyingblueprint.com, or they can DM me too if anybody has any questions, at Grant Warrington on Instagram. Shoot me a DM. I'd be happy to help. or some longer form stuff's on YouTube too at Grant Warrington.
And I have to ask, in you saying that, what is your favorite social media content creation platform?
I would have to say Instagram, because I have more, I'm 30 right now. I have like almost 35,000 followers on there. So I think that I love the lives now. I've just started doing lives. I'm getting into, I'm on everything. I'm on Facebook. I'm on TikTok. But I'm Instagram right now. And then I'm getting into YouTube. I want to do more YouTube long form. I think I have like just under 4,000 followers there. So I'm excited to get that going. And to get more into the long form, because YouTube intrigues me. It's just a little more effort for the long form. That's why I've shied away from it, but I'm very interested in that. But yeah, Instagram would be my main spot.
It's funny that you say that, because I'm the complete opposite. I have such a difficult time with short form, and thankfully I have editors and whatnot to help me with the long form, because it does take a team with long form, really. Yeah. But I find it's interesting for me because in long form, it's not about the numbers. It's really about the evergreen content that can live on Google. You know, if it's a blog post, actually LinkedIn is working really well these days in terms of SEO, or the YouTube that's going to rank for years and years on end. So for me, I find that has been very lucrative, and really doubling down on that. But, you know, we're in very different industries. That's just what I have found.
No, and I need to take that advice. So I need to get on YouTube. I need to do more of that. And like I told you earlier, I follow advice. Like people give me advice. I like to follow the details. Like I like to write down what I'm going to say and all that. And I think that's the problem with my YouTube is free flowing more. I need to free flow more and just kind of let go and just talk about what I know. And I'm going to work on that.
I have a good tip for you. I'll share it once we finish recording.
I love it.
But thank you for being here, Grant. I really appreciate your time. Very insightful conversation. And check out Grant's links. All of the links are included in the show notes below if you are interested in being in his community, in his audience, and seeing what he's up to on a day-to-day basis. Thank you for being here, Grant.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it.
You've just listened to the Work, Wealth, and Travel podcast. If anything from this episode resonated with you, I would appreciate if you share this podcast on your socials. And of course, be sure to tag me. And don't forget to leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Thank you for joining me on this global citizen journey, and I'll see you in the next episode.